This story is based on reports sent in by our subscribers and edited by me. The names have been changed to protect anonymity. If you would also like your story to be told here, send me an email. I love receiving your experiences and bringing new stories to the channel. Now, let's get started. It was the last semester of high school, and everything seemed to vibrate under the skin. Exams, plans for the future, the last meetings with classmates. Everything took on a different hue, as if the air was always charged with electricity. I was in that phase where emotions rise to the surface, like unexpected waves, and in that turbulent sea, he appeared. I remember perfectly the day the new physical education teacher arrived at the school. The sound of his firm footsteps echoing in the gym, his deep voice that drew everyone's attention, and his body, oh, his body. Tall, with broad shoulders that seemed to carry the world, well-defined shoulders and muscular arms that moved with the ease of someone who knew every inch of his own body. It was as if it had been secretly sculpted, just to throw us off balance. When I stepped onto the court and saw him for the first time, it was as if the world went silent for a moment. He smiled, animatedly explaining the rules of a volleyball tournament he had designed himself. As he spoke, his brown eyes seemed to be searching for someone among us. When they found mine, I felt a pang in my stomach, as if something had been triggered inside me. The first class was a mix of nervousness and excitement. While he talked about position, technique, and movement on the court, I tried to focus. In vain. Sweat was running down his temples, and his light gray t-shirt clung subtly to his chest, revealing contours I didn't even know I could see in such detail. Every time he came closer to correct a movement, a shiver ran down his spine. And when he placed his hand on my shoulder to adjust me, the touch was firm, precise, but it left a mark, if you know what I mean. In the days that followed, something changed in me. I started putting more effort into physical education class. I arrived early, trained with more focus, sweated more, and not just because of the physical effort. I wanted him to notice, to see something in me, beyond just the average student. And he did notice. During the training, our encounters became more frequent. He watched me, praised, corrected. Sometimes when I pulled off a good move, he would smile and say, "That's how it's done. It's more powerful than it seems." Those words echoed within me for hours. He was talking about my serve, for sure, but there was something else, something in his eyes, in the tone of his voice, as if he knew exactly what he was doing to me, if you know what I mean. One afternoon, after a particularly intense training session, he asked a few of us to stay a bit longer and help put away the equipment. The gym was empty, sunlight streaming through the tall windows, and the warmth felt almost intimate. As we were putting away the balls, nets, and cones, our hands met at the same time over a volleyball. He looked at me with a tense smile, not forced, but almost conspiratorial. "You have talent, you know that," he said, and his voice was lower than usual. "And so?" I replied, trying to sound casual, but feeling my face burn. "More than you can imagine." He took another step closer, and the heat intensified. And I'm not just talking about sports, if you know what I mean. I swallowed hard. The distance between us felt like a cruel joke from the universe. I could hear my own breathing, and his too. We stood there for a few seconds that felt like an eternity, until someone came into the gym calling his name, and the moment dissipated like steam in the air. After that, nothing was ever the same. Training took on a different temperature. Every gesture, every word between us was charged with a tension that only the two of us seemed to notice. He would walk past me and sometimes touch my shoulder, as if he still wanted to adjust my posture. But the contact would last a second too long. Sometimes, a glance would linger just a little too long before looking away. And the way he looked at me while I was running on the court made me feel naked, even in my old shorts and school t-shirt. The following week, he announced that the teams for the tournament had been formed and that he would personally attend the training sessions. When I heard my name on the team he would be coaching personally, I almost dropped the ball. Inside, there was fire. At the end of that day, as I was leaving school, I could still hear the echo of his voice in my head, and it wasn't about volleyball. It was about the way he looked at me, the way he touched me, the way he told me things with his body that he could never say with words. It was as if we were playing a different kind of game, a place where the rules weren't written, where the score was measured in glances and touches of the ball. And I was more than willing to play. Until the last set, until the last point, until one of us finally scored. If you know what I mean. After the day our hands touched the ball, I started to notice things that had gone unnoticed before. The way he ran his fingers over the whistle before bringing it to his lips. The way his eyes would discreetly scan the court before lingering on me for just a second longer. Small gestures, almost innocent, but they burned my skin like direct contact. The next morning, when I arrived at the locker room, I found a note stuck to the door. The handwriting was firm and masculine. Extra training today, comme it said, and only for those who stand out. Be focused and ready. The message was, of course, addressed to the team, but I knew, or wanted to believe, that this note had been written with me in mind. At exactly 4 o'clock, I was there, and so was he. The other teammates arrived little by little, but for a moment, it was just the two of us on the court. He adjusted the net, focused, and I watched him. The afternoon sun streamed through the gymnasium's stained glass windows, casting shadows across his body, as if it wanted to reveal more than it concealed. "Are you always this punctual?" he asked, without looking directly at me, as he tied a rope to the side of the net. "Only when it's worth it," I replied. And I saw a slight smile appear at the corner of his mouth. During practice, he was more present than ever. He corrected our positions, encouraged us with praise, but with me, there was something more. As he got closer, his voice grew softer. When he corrected my posture, his hands found precise spots on my body, as if he knew exactly where to press to spark a reaction. "Your arm is very tense," he told me at one point, gripping my wrist firmly. "Let go. Let it flow. Volleyball is about rhythm and touch. You need to feel, understand the other side's reaction before you respond, if you know what I mean." I had trouble swallowing. That phrase was already becoming a password between us, a window onto everything that couldn't be said out loud. After practice, he pulled me aside. "Do you really want to get better?" he asked, his eyes fixed on mine. "Because if you do, I can give you more advanced exercises. Tomorrow, just the two of us." I nodded, almost without thinking. "Yes, I do." The next day, the school was quieter. It was Saturday, and there were few people around. I walked into the gym with my heart pounding, but pretending to act natural. He was already waiting for me, wearing a tighter t-shirt than usual, and sports shorts that left little to the imagination. It wasn't much, just having him to myself, but it was enough to make me dizzy. "Let's start with resistance," he said, handing me a ball. "You're going to have to hold on for longer." The way he said that left me breathless. We started the workout, but the tension was like a third presence between us. He kept getting closer. He corrected my serve by coming up behind me, his hands guiding my hips, his chest lightly brushing against my back. The contact was professional up to a certain point. At one point, he asked me to lie on my back on the court floor, arms outstretched, while he demonstrated a stretching exercise. He knelt beside me and grabbed my leg, slowly lifting it. "You should feel the stretch in your back," he said, massaging the muscle with his fingers. "Breathe deeply, relax, let my body tell me where the limit is and how far I can go with you, if you know what I mean." My whole body reacted to every touch, to every word. I could feel the heat rising between my legs, even though it had never gone that far before. It was as if the anticipation, the unspoken, was more erotic than any direct action. After the workout, I sat down next to him on the court floor. We were out of breath, sweaty. He looked at me intently and ran his hand through his hair, as if pushing away a forbidden thought. "You're dedicated," he said, his voice hoarse. "Only with what's worth it." Silence. "That could be dangerous," he added, looking me in the eyes. "We're already in the game, Professor. Right now, the network is down." He laughed, but it was a restrained laugh, full of desire and caution. We stood there looking at each other, so close I could feel the warmth of his body. "I have to go," he finally said, breaking the spell. He got up quickly, as if fleeing the courtroom was also a way of fleeing from me. I left that place that day with a fever. My thoughts were racing faster than my legs. I replayed every movement, every touch, every whispered word. The smell of his sweat still clung to my skin. I didn't know where this would lead us, but I was sure it wasn't just about volleyball. The next day, when I arrived at school, I ran into him in the hallway. A second glance, a slight smile at the corner of his mouth, and that subtle two-finger gesture, almost imperceptible, was enough to set me on fire inside. We were in the middle of something that wasn't spoken out loud, something that played out in silence, in touch, in glances, the kind of game where no one wanted to lose, but where both of them knew exactly what they wanted to win, and I was ready for the next point, if you know what I mean. The next few hours passed in a blur. I could still feel the warmth of his touch on my muscles, as if he had marked every inch with his fingertips. That night, I slept with the memory of his body next to mine, with his voice echoing in my head. "I need to feel how far I can go with you, if you know what I mean." And I understood. Maybe even more than I should have. The next day, he showed up to class with a calm expression, but there was something in his eyes, a spark that hadn't been there before. He shot me a quick glance as soon as I entered the courtroom, a look that said everything without saying a word, the kind of look that undresses you with its intensity. During the warm-up, he walked past me and whispered, "Will you be able to keep up with me today? Or should I teach you how to breathe again?" I raised an eyebrow, trying to hide the shiver that ran down my spine. "That depends. Do you prefer to gasp or to breathe steadily?" He smiled and didn't answer. He kept walking, as if he had deliberately left that double meaning hanging between us like a warm mist. The class was more technical than usual, but nothing about it was ordinary. The way he touched the students to adjust their posture, the tone he used with me, always a little lower, always a little closer. Finally, as the others were leaving, he called me over with a discreet gesture. He simply raised his hand, as if giving a silent command that my body already knew by heart. "Stay a little longer," he said. "I need to go over a few movements with you, some important details." And well, sometimes it's the details that make all the difference, if you know what I mean. The gym was empty, echoing with our footsteps. He placed a ball in my hand, stood behind me, and held my arms, adjusting them as if he were sculpting a delicate work of art. His breath was close to my ear, and for a moment, I lost all concentration. "You need to control your impulses better," he murmured, waiting for the right moment when the tension was at its peak. "Then yes, you attack." The way he said the word attack sounded more like a challenge than an instruction. I felt my skin crawl, even as the heat rose within my body. And what if I want to turn the tables like that? And what if I were the attacker? And you, the defense? He paused for a second. The silence stretched on, tense. Then he stepped back and looked at me intently. "In that case, I would have to be ready to take it firmly. I just don't know if you know how to play with that kind of strength." The tension between us was almost tangible. You could cut it with your fingernails. And, in a way, it allowed us to keep control, or at least to give the impression that we still had some control. He stepped away and grabbed 2 bottles of water. He tossed one to me and drank slowly, his eyes still locked on mine. "There's a game on Saturday afternoon," he said, changing his tone, trying to sound more neutral. "Small team, Invitation only. You're on the list. And where will it be? Closed gym? After hours? Little light? Only those who really know how to play. Do you agree? I nodded with a sly smile. With that kind of invitation, there's no way to say no. On Saturday, I arrived with my heart pounding. The gym was dimly lit, just as he had promised. There were a few people from the team, but the atmosphere was different, more intimate. The energy in the air was almost electric. The game started, and, as always, he was on the court. But that night was different. The way he challenged me with his moves, the way he teased me with his glances, the way he cheered when I scored a point. All of it was part of a veiled, yet unmistakably intense flirtation. During one of the breaks, he came over, sweaty and out of breath, his eyes shining. "I'm starting to think you were born for this," he said. "To play, to provoke. Maybe I'm just playing your game." I shot back, looking at him intently. "And you seem to like competitions." "If you know what I mean." He smiled, but his eyes said something else, something more urgent, more subtle. "After the match, I want to show you a special move, something particular. It's all about positioning and resistance. I promise you, you're going to sweat. A lot." When the match ended, he waited for me outside the locker rooms. We walked together into the dark side of the gym. He led me into an equipment room, now empty, and turned on a dim light, just enough to reveal shapes and shadows. "No one will disturb you here," he said, closing the door behind him. The sound of the lock turning echoed inside me like a drumbeat of anticipation. He came closer, and for the first time he didn't say a word. He simply ran his fingers along the side of my face, sliding down to my neck. His eyes silently searched mine, as if he were asking for permission, or as if he were saying that from now on, the next move was up to me. And in that moment I knew. The line between what was allowed and what was forbidden was already far behind us in the rearview mirror. We were now playing a new game, and I had no intention of losing. If you know what I mean. The equipment room seemed to breathe along with us. The sound of our breathing was the only thing filling the space, heavy and charged with tension. I could hear the beating of my heart in my ears, in my chest, at my fingertips. There was no more courtroom, no more class, no more rules, just the two of us. And that thin distance that threatened to disappear at any moment. He approached slowly, as if he had all the time in the world. And yet, his eyes burned with urgency. "You know that after this, there's no going back, right?" he murmured. His voice was hoarse from holding something back for too long. "Who said I wanted to go back?" He smiled, as if he knew I was about to give in to a game he already understood. But what he might not have known yet was that I knew how to play too. His fingers touched my waist with an almost deliberate lightness, like someone who knows exactly the effect a gentle touch has on bare skin. A shiver ran through my body, and I tilted my face, searching for his lips, but he didn't give in, not yet. "Calm down," he murmured. "The best part of the game is the tension, not almost, in the what if. Can you wait for the right moment? Only if you show me how. If you know what I mean." He laughed softly, muffled, and rested his forehead against mine, keeping our bodies dangerously close, but not yet merging. The palm of his hand traveled down my back until it reached the edge of my blouse. And then, with the delicacy of a secret, his fingers made direct contact with my skin, warm, firm, determined. The sensation was like a silent lightning bolt exploding inside me. I melted under every gesture, every look he gave me, as if he was unraveling me piece by piece. Slowly, deliberately, he knew the effect he was having and seemed to relish it. "You are made of tension and desire. A walking electric field," he said, his mouth brushing against my neck. "And do you know what happens when two charges get too close? Do they explode? That's right. And I'm not responsible for the damage." His tongue traced a barely perceptible line from my jaw to behind my ear. I gasped involuntarily, feeling my legs grow weak. He held me firmly by the waist and smiled, as if every one of my reactions was part of an experiment he was winning hands down. "You have to stop doing that," I said, breathless. "To do what?" "Leave me like this." "Like this? No air, no ground." He didn't answer. He simply turned me around, carefully, and pressed my body against one of the shelves in the room. His arms wrapped around me from behind, and he pressed his chest against my back, his warmth consuming me completely. And there, where no one else could see us, where the eyes of the school couldn't reach us, he guided me through another kind of choreography. His lips touched the back of my neck, his fingers intertwined with mine, while his hips aligned with my body, following a rhythm that only the two of us understood. A game of touch and teasing, where every movement had a double meaning, where the simple act of breathing became an invitation, and I accepted them all. "You learn quickly," he whispered in my ear. "You can already feel the rhythm, know when to move forward and when to step back. That's rare. Maybe I just need the right coach," he said with a smile between two sighs, "if you know what I mean." He gently bit my shoulder in response, a gesture that blended affection, desire, and dominance. I was surrendered, but also in control of the situation. A dance of power disguised as seduction. The dim light in the room made everything even more intimate, as if the outside world no longer existed, as if we were trapped in a bubble where time stood still, where the only rule was desire. Finally, he pulled away a little, his eyes still locked on mine, both of us breathless. "I have to say, you surprise me. And look, I've seen a lot of things in this life. I haven't even shown you everything I know yet," I teased with a sly smile. He looked at me as if he was analyzing my soul, then held my face in his hands and kissed me, this time without restraint. No tension, almost blood. It was the kiss of someone who crosses the line and knows there's no going back. And there in that forgotten room, among coiled nets and volleyballs, two bodies found each other in a game without rules, where the score didn't matter. Just the touch. I just want him. When we left hours later, the sky was already darkening outside. The school seemed like a world away. And everything in me, from my skin to my thoughts, bore the mark of that encounter. An invisible leap that said, something has changed. On Monday, he saw me from afar in the hallway and looked away with a tense smile, but not before giving me a barely noticeable wink. And all I could think about was when the next game would be, because now that I knew how to play, I wanted more. A lot more, if you know what I mean. Graduation week arrived like a warm summer breeze, light on the surface, but full of invisible promises. The hallways were filled with repeated goodbyes, hugs that lasted too long, and smiles that hid an eager longing. But I could only think about one thing. Inside. It had been a few days since that afternoon in the equipment room, since that ruleless game where touches spoke louder than words. We didn't talk about it afterwards. We didn't need to. It was in every glance exchanged in the hallway, in every casually repeated gesture, every time our paths crossed, as if fate was playing with us, once again. That Friday, the school organized what they called the final match, a friendly game between students and teachers to celebrate the end of the term. And guess who was the coach in charge of forming the teams? Exactly, him. When he saw me walk into the court with my uniform hugging my body, his gaze slowly traced my silhouette, disguised as casual, like someone calculating every move before making the perfect serve. I felt the heat rise in my legs, spread up to my chest, and stop there. One of the most dangerous thoughts you can have in public. "You're playing on my team today," he said with a discreet smile. "I need my best player close by, if you know what I mean." I raised an eyebrow and replied with a sly smile, the same one he already knew so well. The game began, but it wasn't just the volleyball match that was taking place there. With every play, every touch, every celebration that called for a handshake, or a hug a little tighter than necessary, there was something pulsing between us. Something no one else saw, but that was there, dancing just beneath the surface. At one point, after a decisive point, he pulled me in by the waist for a celebratory hug that lasted a second longer than it should have. His beard brushed against my neck, and I could feel his warm breath. It was like a wordless whisper, but it said everything. I didn't want that hug to end, not this game, not even this time with him. But reality, as always, gently tapped us on the shoulder. The match was over. Applause filled the gym, photos were taken, and the school hallways once again echoed with goodbyes. Later, when it was almost dark, I walked alone across the empty field, my feet touching the grass still warm from the late afternoon. That's when I heard footsteps behind me. I recognized him immediately, without needing to look. "I like seeing you like this," he said in a low, drawling voice, silent, natural, intense. "I like hearing you like this," I replied without turning around, "when you don't need to say everything with words, if you know what I mean." He took a step forward, close enough for me to feel his warmth behind me. His fingers touched the back of my neck, brushing aside a strand of hair. A shiver ran down my spine, as if my skin had realized before I did that something was about to happen. I've never wanted to get this close to anyone here. But with you, it was different. "You knocked me off my feet," he said with raw sincerity. "And you took my breath away. So we're even." He laughed, and finally, his arms wrapped around me from behind. There, in the middle of the field, under the first star of the night, he pulled me close and kissed me as if it were the first time, and maybe the last time. His lips explored mine with haste and desire, but there was tenderness hidden there, an urgency that came not just from the body, but from the soul. It was as if our skin was speaking to each other, recognizing one another. His hands moved over my waist with mastery, pulling, holding, guiding, and I let him. I wanted to. More. My hands found his chest, tracing the contours of that body I had known with my eyes for so long. And now, with touch, everything made more sense. As if I had been waiting for this since the very first class, from his very first hello on the field. We lay down on the grass, hidden beneath the dark veil of the sky that was just beginning to reveal itself. The field, now empty, belonged to us alone. The world around us disappeared once again. He leaned over me, his eyes diving into mine. "I don't know what happens after this. I don't know what I can promise you, but I know I want this moment. Now. Sometimes now is all we need." And it was. Night fell upon us. And what was happening there, between muffled kisses, anxious caresses, and bodies meeting in silence, was more than just desire. It was a connection. It was a type of delivery that doesn't always have a name, but you can recognize it by the way your heart races just remembering it. When we got up, our uniforms rumpled and our hair tousled, he looked at me with a crooked smile. It was dangerous, but it's so true. He nodded, and for a moment, it seemed like he wanted to say something more. But he didn't say it. He just held my hand for a moment, and then let it go. The following week, school would just be another place where everything would happen. And the future? Well, the future was a mystery that maybe didn't need to be solved right now. After all, some games don't have a final score. They only leave memories, if you know what I mean. Today, several months later, I close my eyes, and I can still feel the warm weight of his hands on my body, the deep taste of his lips, and the steam caressing our skin. I remember every detail fondly, the clinking of the tubes, the light reflected in the bottles, the echo of our sighs. When I close my eyes, I relive that moment in slow motion, every inner spark exploding into sensations that burn me like embers. The legacy of that last class has remained etched in me like the mark of a perfect reaction. And every time I take a deep breath, I feel the flame ignite again. And I relive it all as if it were the first time. And that's all for today. This story is over. But if you click on the video above, you can find other stories like this one. Thank you to everyone who left a comment. Don't forget to like the channel and subscribe so you don't miss my next videos.